Hello everybody, this is Jason Petruzzello, and I want to share with everybody my Let's Play of March of the Eagles by Paradox Interactive. March of the Eagles, this is a preview of the game. It's not actually out yet. It is going to be released in February. Now for this Let's Play, we're going to just focus on overall gameplay, and we're going to use the country of Spain. Now keep in mind, this is still just a beta copy of the game. It doesn't come out until the middle of February, so we're going to focus on overall gameplay and not get too bogged down in minutiae and details. Now why would you want to play Spain? Spain is one of the major powers of the game, and Spain can win the game by themselves. But Spain's starting position in 1805 isn't that great. Spain starts in coalition with France, and as you can see right there in the tooltip, France is asking us to join their coalition and go to war with England. There's a problem with this. The British have a really nice navy. Now let's pause the game for a second and take a look at this map screen. This is the dominance map mode, and it shows all of the provinces Spain must own or control through satellites in order to become the dominant power on both land and sea. Land dominance provinces are labeled in green, and naval dominance provinces are labeled in blue. As you can see from this map, Spain's dominance provinces cover other countries: Portugal, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, parts of France. But it's hard to see on the map, but Gibraltar and Malta are also dominance provinces for Spain. This means that Spain has a reason to go to war with Britain, but at the same time, if you see all those dominance provinces within the borders of France, you'll know that in order for me to win the game, I'm going to have to face the French at some point. So, should I face the French now, or should I fight the British right now? And my answer to that question for this Let's Play is, I'm going to go to war with the British. So I'm going to skip forward about a month, and I'm going to declare war on the British. I've already moved my fleet to the Mediterranean, and I've moved my army to Gibraltar. Now, if you keep seeing the word evade going over the head of my army, it's because the British army was trying to evade me and escape Gibraltar, but I've caught them and drugged them into a battle. I'm not going to go over the details of that battle because it was a really wimpy army, and I've stacked about 40,000 some odd troops there. I'm also getting my armies together for another war, because if I'm going to go to war with England, I might as well assign some leaders to two armies and invade Portugal. If you remember on the dominance map earlier, you saw that I had 4 dominance provinces within the borders of Portugal. So, while I've got one army besieging Gibraltar, I'm going to march on the Portuguese. Now, this game being set in the period of the Napoleonic Wars, most fortresses are not difficult to either siege or outright assault. But in this case, the provinces of Gibraltar and Malta have special rules, and they're much harder to besiege or even blockade than normal provinces. So what I'm going to do is buy some artillery and ship them to Gibraltar to beef up the army I have stationed there. However, I don't think Gibraltar will be completely sacked even by the time I'm done with this Let's Play. Gibraltar's very difficult to take out, and since I cannot go toe-to-toe with the British Navy right now, I cannot even blockade the province. But with the British tied up in Gibraltar, and with their navy trying to stop the French from invading them and cover their interests here in southern Europe, I now have the freedom of action I need to attack Portugal. Now I just want to show everybody for a second how armies are organized in March of the Eagles. When you expand the army window to full size, as I've done here, you can see what kind of brigades are in each flank of the army. You assign a leader to the left, middle, and right flanks, and the commander of the army controls the reserves. What's important here is that armies with certain kinds of brigades can choose certain kinds of tactics. In this case, I haven't selected any special tactics because my army is composed of mostly militia, and militia doesn't have access to any special tactics. It's a weak troop type. But I don't need a fancy army to beat Portugal. I need to defeat them quickly, so I'm going to take my existing army, declare war on Portugal, and immediately march in. My goal here is not to win a spectacular campaign, it's to win it quickly, because once I make Portugal a satellite state, I won't have to worry about the British doing anything to them anymore, or using Portugal as a way to invade me. I already order my armies to besiege the forts on the border, but because the forts are weakly garrisoned, I order my troops to attack in the north because the Portuguese main force is not anywhere near that. We take the fort without hardly any difficulty. Meanwhile, the main Portuguese force, as you can see, is bypassing me, and they're going to besiege Badajoz in the east. I'm not worried about that right now because the Portuguese army is weaker than my army. And my navy isn't fighting the Portuguese army because I'm leaving my navy in port so the British can't get to it. Now you see that the Portuguese are trying to send a tiny little army back to that fortress. I'm not worried about that. I'm instead going to assault and take the city of Porto. Notice the Portuguese are still besieging Badajoz, and I still have another army besieging their fortress in Elvias. I'm not going to worry about that right now. You can notice that the siege is still taking place in Gibraltar, and if you'll notice, we're not making a whole lot of progress. And that's the way it's going to continue to be for some time. Instead, I'm going to march my army on Lisboa, and I'm going to take Portugal's capital, or at least threaten it. But I have earned enough idea points to get a new idea. Now, ideas are the technology in March of the Eagles, and every major power has their own special ideas in addition to the generic ideas all countries have access to. And what I'm going to do is pick the first idea that's special for Spain. And I'm going to pick that because I want a faster reinforce speed on armies that have been damaged. So I'm going to pick that idea up by spending 200 idea points. Boom, I've got it. It's important to note that ideas build on each other. You can't take a later idea unless you have an earlier idea in that category. And I want all of the ideas in Spain's special idea group at the moment. Now, what I'm hoping is that the siege of Elvias will end soon, and I'll be able to force Portugal to sign a peace treaty. I don't need to occupy all their cities to force them to become a satellite, which is my goal. I don't want to conquer Portugal outright. I just want them to be a satellite state, because if I can force Portugal to be a satellite, I get dominance credit for all my dominance provinces. And we're going to assault the fort, and I take the fort at Elvias. The Portuguese army is still stuck attacking one of my fortresses. Too bad for them. I'm going to demand that they become a satellite. And alright, Portugal is now a satellite state. The good news is I get a cut of Portugal's tax income. The bad news is I don't get any manpower from Portugal's provinces, but the good news on top of the bad news is that Portugal still exists, so Portugal will build its own army and naval forces. Now that I've completed the defeat of Portugal, I'm going to reorganize my armies and try and build a real army with real troop types and not worry about all this militia. I'm also going to consolidate my armies a little bit. I've got some armies scattered in places. I want them sort of all centralized in Spain proper. And you'll notice that I've been keeping tabs on the British Navy, and anytime they're not busy, I send my Navy to go do other stuff. I'm not ready to fight them right now. If the French think I'm going to sacrifice the Spanish Navy to help them beat the British, they're sorely mistaken. The point of this war isn't to help Napoleon win. The point of this war with the British is for me to get my dominance provinces from the British. I just happen to be allied with Napoleon, and that may help me achieve what I want to achieve. But make no mistake, Spain isn't kissing up to Napoleon. It's an alliance of convenience. And if we were going to play this out the whole time, we would reach a point where I would be more than willing to attack France directly. You'll also notice that the British keep sending ships to and from Gibraltar. And part of the reason they're doing that is because the British Navy is trying to keep tabs on several different places at once. The British AI is trying to keep the French from moving across the English Channel and invading England, but they also know that I'm threatening Gibraltar with a siege, and they want to keep my navy from blockading the port. So the AI is doing the best it can. Oh, I got caught by the British Navy. Let's see who's going to win this fight. I think they're going to win, but let's find out. Now, if you look at my tooltips, you'll be able to notice that it clearly shows what the dice roll is, it clearly shows the impact a leader is having, and it shows you what kind of phase of combat we're in. I've slowed the game down a little bit so we can watch this battle in progress. And the British aren't stupid. I think they snuck some extra ships into the battle while I wasn't paying attention. We might actually win this one. Hey, we won! Yay! Woo! Don't get too excited about those ship losses. Ships in March of the Eagle are not individual units. Ships come in flotillas of 4 or 5 for galleys. And what that means is you can lose a whole bunch of ships in a battle, but if you didn't sink any flotilla completely, then the ships can go dock in a friendly port somewhere and get some repairs. It also means I took some damage in that battle too, so I'm not going to be eager to seek battle with the British. Now what am I going to do? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all this militia. Militia has advantages as a troop type, especially for Spain, but right now I don't want militia in my army. If this game was going to last a long time, you would see me taking special militia types and garrisoning certain forts with them. But right now I'm getting rid of militia in my offensive armies, and I'm going to build armies with troop types that I want, including light infantry, guards, infantry, and cavalry. Now, the build interface is something I kind of like about the game, where you can go to an individual province and build, but if you just select a troop type in the military building interface and then just check boxes, you can build any troop type you need, and it'll just assign build orders to various provinces. And if you've assigned a rally point, all those troop types will rally in one point, merge, and become a nice little army. Now, that artillery I built was specifically for the siege in Gibraltar. That artillery that I just assigned there, that's not going in an offensive army. That's just going in the army that's besieging Gibraltar. The reason I'm sending that to Gibraltar is because that siege is going to take forever as it is, and it's going to take even longer if I can't get any artillery there to batter the fort down. The militia I'm disbanding, the manpower doesn't go away. The manpower goes back into the manpower pool, so I can recycle that manpower and turn it into something else. As you can see, I'm still not making a lot of progress on the siege of Gibraltar. If I could consistently set up a blockade there, the siege would go much faster. Now, you notice you keep seeing dominance messages showing up. The French and the British are doing their own thing up north, and what's important to note is that dominance is established by currently controlled provinces by you or your satellites. What that means is that even without a peace treaty being signed, dominance can change. And the French and the British are fighting each other over dominance provinces somewhere else. There's also stuff happening in Eastern Europe. Austria and Russia and the Ottomans and the Prussians are all having a good old time over there. Now, if I'm going to be fighting the British, you can see me starting to build some ships. I'm going to need some troop transports just so I can ship an army to Malta. I might also build some more ships of the line as time goes by, but ships are really expensive. And to be perfectly honest, one of the real advantages of being the naval dominant power is that whoever's naval dominant, usually the British, they get a big income boost based on harbor fees. I won't go into the math on harbor fees, but let me just say this. The longer the British are naval dominant, the wealthier they're going to get. And it makes it very hard to beat them in terms of navy because they can afford to replace ships that I might not be able to replace. Now, you'll see here that I'm building some guard brigades. I'm running low on cash, so I can't build everything I want to build. But something I want to emphasize here is that every troop type has something that it's good at. And while guards are really fancy and awesome infantry, you can't just make an army out of guards and expect it to do well. You need cavalry and all those other kinds of infantry. And even though I've been disbanding my militia, let me emphasize here that militia type units do have a role to play. I just don't have any use for them right this moment. Later on, thanks to Spain's national ideas, around 1810, I might build a ton of militia and post them in forts on the border with France, and then watch Napoleon fail miserably at invading Spain. We're not going to be doing that today. Time to get another national idea. I'm going to take the militia defense national idea for Spain. It's one of Spain's special ideas. Again, if I were doing a longer game, there would be things I would be doing with militia. Instead, it's time to go after some dominance provinces, and I'm going to attack Piedmont. The British Navy is occupied doing a bunch of stuff, and even the British Navy can only be in so many places at one time. So I'm going to march my army to those nice new troop transports I built, even as I'm building a second major army for another job. Now this army has enough troop types to use special tactics, so I'm going to pick a tactic for each flank. As you'll notice, the tooltips will tell you about what various tactics do. I'm not going to go into the details with that. You can look at the tooltips on your own time. Now, in spite of my military reorganization, I still don't have the right army composition for my favorite tactic, which is called Up the Guard. But the new army that I'm building over there in the south, that will have an army with that tactic. Okay, we're going to invade Piedmont. British Navy's occupied. This is our big chance to get it. They have a really wimpy army. But part of the reason I'm attacking them now is because if I don't attack them now, I won't have, the French might get them before I do, and then I won't get the chance to get these dominance provinces. I'm going to turn them into a satellite too. Now, if you were paying attention, you'll notice that my leaders got messages during that battle. Oh, I'm going to declare war on Sicily too while we're at it. Leaders gain traits as they fight in battle. This improves their performance using various troop types. Now Sicily, you'll notice Sicily has lost a lot of land to France. And what I'm doing here is I'm turning them into a satellite to get my dominance provinces before the French finish annexing them. Boom. Okay, Piedmont and Sicily are now my satellites. We're still besieging Gibraltar. It hasn't gone anywhere yet. The good news is now since I have a satellite right over there in the that part of the Mediterranean, not only have I made progress towards dominance, but that gives me a place to base ships that's right next door to Malta. Alright, this army's ready for some tactics, and I'm going to select Up the Guard in, I think, all three of them. Now, if you look at the reserve flank, that's the flank that's all the way on the right, you'll see some supply train units. Supply trains are always in the rear of the army. And the supply train units, unlike regular combat units, they don't really contribute to combat. But the supply train provides a logistics bonus in combat because you have not just proper supplies, but you can move those supplies around the army. Also, any troops stationed in the reserve are under the direct command of the leader of the entire army. And what will happen during combat is each of the three major flanks will be involved in combat, and then at critical points in the battle, the commander-in-chief of the army will order reserves into action. Oh, the British thought they were going to stop me moving troops around. How silly of them. That's not going to happen. But anyway, so the troops you put in reserve are sort of the leader of the army actually gets to use them at pivotal points during the battle, assuming the leader of the entire army is competent, which isn't always the case. It turns out the British dropped off a tiny little army in the islands. I'm going to have to go deal with that later. It's not super important, but I don't have anything else to do right at this moment until I secure Gibraltar, so we might as well smash them. And if you look at the battle screen, you'll see that the British army is so small it doesn't even have reserves or all three flanks occupied. But you can see the tactics my leaders have selected. And I beat them. And my leaders gained traits even if the British army was of practically no use. We're going to load them up and we're going to press on to Malta, the other place the British are trying to screen with ships. Now, Malta is like Gibraltar. It's a special island fortress with special rules. And like Gibraltar, I cannot even assault the fortress unless I have a blockade in place, and it's really hard to siege it out. But no time like the present to go ahead and take care of that little problem. Oh, look at the British. They've actually put a decent little army on my islands. But bad news for them. I've got another army just ready to take out the British forces that are besieging that island. Yes, the siege of Gibraltar is still happening. Now, one of the reasons I'm in coalition with France and not just attacking France right now is because since we're in a coalition with each other, we can't attack each other. And as you'll notice, the entire effort of my military is being devoted to fighting Britain and other Mediterranean powers. If the French attacked me now, I'd have nothing to defend myself in the north. So I have to stay on France's good side until I'm ready to defeat them. Now, I'm going to put that one army up kind of towards the north, but that's just in case the British get smart and try to invade another part of Spain. That's all that is. Now, if you notice the manpower indicator, you'll see that I'm short manpower. One of the things that I've learned in March of the Eagles is that while armies can be expensive, one of the real issues with most armies is manpower. Thanks to attrition and combat losses, you may oftentimes run out of manpower before you run out of cash. That's probably why there's a whole category of ideas related to supply and attrition. Because if you can get a handle on supply and attrition, chances are you'll be able to scrounge up more manpower for actual fighting rather than just starving to death on the march. No, the British sacked the island. I'm going to have to go take care of that at some point. It's starting to annoy me. If you look at the top, you'll also see the war exhaustion indicator, and it's a number between 1 and 20, or 0 and 20, I should say. And you'll notice I don't have a lot of war exhaustion, partially because I've been mostly winning battles, and partially because, for the most part, I've had almost none of my provinces occupied. Like, this one dinky little island was occupied briefly, but it's not like I've had whole cities being occupied for months on end. War exhaustion is very sensitive to casualties and to occupations. Alright, if you take a look at these battle reports, you'll notice that the loser of the battle always earns more idea points than the winner of a battle. It's one of the ways in which this game is balanced. This helps the powers that get beaten by the French or by the British. It gives them an ability to kind of play technological catch-up. Now that I've taken care of that little problem, we're going to get that army back to the mainland before the British Navy decides to attack the Mediterranean en masse. And if you look at the war capacity comparison, the British still, despite having much more war exhaustion, are really not in the mood to give up anything to me. And they really don't have a reason to right now. Because they still haven't taken Gibraltar, still haven't taken Malta. And so they have really no incentive to just say, oh, we surrender to you. They've got no reason to. And so they're going to keep being a pain. Maybe I can finally get that army to Malta and do something useful with it. After playing tag with the British Navy in the Mediterranean some more. To take that third national idea, and that's the one I've been waiting for. It increases the manpower of the country. Now, because I'm tired of not having taken Gibraltar, I'm going to force the British Navy into a fight. And I'm going to beat them. Yay. And that'll put Gibraltar under blockade. Now that Gibraltar's under blockade, I can actually launch an assault. And let's launch that assault and see if I'm going to be successful or not. Ooh, that was a bad defeat. That killed thousands of people pointlessly. Now, despite the defeat, my leaders did still learn some stuff from that, but to be perfectly honest, that was an unconscionable waste of manpower. But, of course, I want to take the actual province. And, oh, there's the British Navy. I'm just trying to get myself back to port. The British just signed a treaty with someone else. It's nothing I'm worried about right now. Yeah, the manpower loss from that's going to be substantial. Yeah, that's what I get for trying to rush things. We're going to try and put Gibraltar under blockade again, only this time I'm just going to... Oh, well, there's the British trying to contest my blockade. I'm just going to play tag with the British Navy. I don't think I can keep Gibraltar under blockade. Notice my admiral's gaining skills too. But I'm going to keep playing freeze tag with the British Navy. If I can wear them down enough, I might be able to put Gibraltar under continuous blockade, and then even the siege will go much faster. Now that I've got the fortress under blockade, this siege is going to go much faster. I'm going to build some more troops. What you don't know is that once this siege is over, I'm going to disband all the militia that's in this army and make some new troops out of them. So I'm not destroying my manpower pointlessly. I'm just going to recycle that manpower, knowing that I'm going to win that siege shortly. Watch the siege. Oh, there it went. Finally! I finally got the province taken. Yay! And so victory is mine. And with that, we're going to leave off with this Let's Play. I could keep playing for hours and hours and hours, but nobody has time for that, and nobody has the bandwidth for that. I hope everyone's enjoyed this Let's Play, and I hope it's given you at least some insight into this new game that's going to be coming out. Don't mind my navy. I'm going to go invade Morocco after we're done with this Let's Play. But thank everyone for watching, and when the game comes out, I'll have a review for you. Until then, have fun.